a lot of the times, again, you could potentially just, see the person in some sort of venue, whether it's at a chamber event or you see them on the news or whatever it might be, but you don't really know that person. This, again, I hope will help people realize that, these people within the community are more relatable and open to conversation.
Welcome to our podcast experience, the first one. I am Kaylin Risvold, President and CEO of the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce, joined here by my co-host, Craig.
I'm Craig Meyer, CEO of 101 Digital, and a big part of why I wanted to get involved with the chamber and start doing this is I've probably told this story to numerous chamber members at this point now, but I have lived here in Naperville for 30 years, and there's a lot of things that you would think you would know about the city, but I really haven't even learned probably 50% of what's going on here, right? I've also mentioned in other podcasts that, being even in the chamber, I've learned so much. So because of the experiences that I've already been able to have within the chamber and just now within the community, really want to be able to share that with more people, right? So by doing this podcast, we're going to, have a lot of people on that, have a lot of experience within Naperville. They do a lot of things in Naperville. So, very excited to do this. And I hope other people that are either in the Naperville community or local areas, Kelli, obviously you can also explain kind of the other areas this touch on, but that's really why I think we're going to be doing this, is to just get more people involved and let people know what's going on locally. So yeah, Kelli, can you introduce yourself and give some more backstory to what we're going to be doing here?
Yes, happy to. Kelli Keyzers, Director of Marketing and Communications with the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce. And I think your motivation for wanting to do this and approaching us on a podcast that actually, backstory with Kaylin, when we started almost days apart, or I should say weeks apart, at the chamber, one of her original ideas was to somehow get a podcast going. So this has been a long time in the coming, maybe, and it just took a little bit of a push and like, hey, let's do this. But as far as the chamber is concerned, I think, my role at the chamber is to speak about what we're doing and let everybody know the programs and the opportunities that exist to connect and engage. And this is another beautiful avenue to do that. And I think that's exactly the purpose, the why behind it, is to connect the community, chamber members, future members, if you don't even know what a chamber does, show behind the scenes what some of the leaders and organizations, businesses, our chamber itself, what we're doing to bring resources, advocacy, programming, professional development, and just, act as a connector. And I think this is another thing to tune into, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think that aligns with, not to get too corporate here, our strategic plan. It is to be your resource and your advocate for our community. And that's meant to be the chamber community, but also the larger community as well. So in being your resource, we do that through a myriad of different ways, including events, programs, and so many things as well. But that's where I kind of see this podcast fitting in, is being that resource. The chamber has a couple of events like Lunch with a Leader, where it's a small, intimate gathering where you get to hear a little bit more about how a person got to their seat, what they've learned, their struggles, their successes, and it makes them more humanized somehow. And those events have some of the best responses we get because, like you said, it's kind of like pulling the curtain back a little bit and looking behind the scenes. So taking something like Lunch with a Leader and amplifying it through this medium, thank you for your partnership in this. I think it's going to be great to use the chamber's connections and relationships to talk about resources available for people, but then also our history, growing up in Naperville and being able to ask questions of, hey, I didn't even know that existed or in that way. I was walking, doing a downtown Naperville walkabout earlier this week, and there's a sign by the Spice House that says City Meat Market. I said, what was that? I have no clue what it was. And I was able to ask Christine Jeffries, who runs the Naperville Development Partnership, what it was in the history. Hey, take this plaque and give me some color, give me some information. And I look forward to being able to share that with more people. And I think the two of us asking questions from different angles and experiences, but true love of our community is going to be great.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, going back to say the lunch with the leader, right? Right now, the nice thing is I can speak on it from the chamber member side, right? You guys are obviously the ones putting all the plans together and getting all of that out there. But for me, the real way that I get the information, there's really, I guess there's probably a couple, but the two biggest ones are I'm part of a team. So Michelle actually does all of the here's what's happening, right? That's kind of like part of the agenda for the team meeting. So I'm learning about these things there. Or emails, right? And that's, probably you and your team putting that together and sending that out to us. And we all know how that goes with emails, right? It's a lot of the times either you're too busy and you're just not going to read them because you're too busy, or you quickly look at it and say with Lunch and a Leader, it's got some information of the day, the person, but doesn't really give you a full aspect of like who that person might be. So like this podcast format will allow us to really talk through, who these people are, potentially have them on before or after. So if someone missed those things, they would get all of that information. And again, at least for myself, really getting all that information versus having to, first click on something and then try to read it. I'm more of a visual audio type person, even with books now. Unfortunately, I just do everything audible. I don't have the time, I feel like, to read. Right. So for the people that really like that format, I think this is going to be really good to learn about things, to get more involved in the community. And I think already the chamber's really helped me in that regard. So.
Yeah, one thing I think, as a modern chamber, I think we need to constantly be evolving how we communicate and send our messages. So, to your point about emails, we have a lot of emails that go out because we have a lot of programs. We got a lot going on, a lot to talk about, but making sure we're hitting everybody where they are. So you can be at home, at your leisure. We're going to try and get the message out anyway, any which way we can. So, this is a good avenue to do that. And I did want to say, other things, Lunch with the Leader is one way to connect with the leader intimately, but I think some of the goals that we have, it's thought leaders, it's change makers, it's people who are making a difference if it's a nonprofit. I know you have a passion for not-for-profits, and I remember you telling me a story about you didn't realize until you joined the chamber how many not-for-profits were in Naperville and the surrounding area that are members of our chamber.
And right by places that I visit, I have a lot of stories that I kind of tell a lot, but a live center, right? Like right next to Dietas, which I know we both have gone to a lot.
Major passion for Dietas.
But so to be able to go to a place though and not even realize like what else is around it, because again, most of the time when you're going somewhere, you're going to that place. Like you said with that sign that you saw, I mean, unless you would have like walked past that, you wouldn't have known. So
I walked down whatever it is, Jefferson, how many countless times, and I've never seen it. We get tunnel vision. So I think this is a great way to kind of pull people out of that tunnel vision and maybe remove some assumptions.
Yeah,
definitely. And
tell stories.
Back to the leader part too, is just make people also more relatable. We talked before that a lot of the times, again, you could potentially just, see the person in some sort of venue, whether it's at a chamber event or you see them on the news or whatever it might be, but you don't really know that person. This, again, I hope will help people realize that, these people within the community are more relatable and open to conversation, which again is what we're working towards, because if you're building community, you got to have conversation with, people in the community.
Well, you're giving our audience and the community an opportunity to engage where they may not have had a moment inside a very busy event that we put on. You got caught in a conversation or you weren't able to go as deep. Maybe we can uncover some of those questions for them, or you guys can.
No, it's really great. I mean, I'm grateful to have continue to build and maintain and build so many wonderful relationships in this town. And the facts that you pick up along the way, I can't wait to share them with all of you. Doug Krieger, who's our city manager, graduated from the Naval Academy and was on a submarine, and so hearing some of his stories from that are fascinating. And to see someone light up talking about something that's not directly related to their job, we can all sit and talk about different goals and metrics and things, and all of that is important. But that moment when you talk to somebody and you see them light up, like how I did earlier when we talked about pasta. The same thing is to learn that little piece about somebody. It's going to be so exciting.
Feeling we're going to have a food segment at some point.
I feel like, to that point, it just creates, and I can tell kind of the story. It's going to be told in an awful way, but It might have actually been this guy Simon, but essentially what he said is when there's some sort of relatability, it's just immediate connections can happen, right? So he used the example of two New Yorkers meeting in New York, not a big deal, right? Just we're not going to become friends because we're both in New York. Two New Yorkers in, say, Paris meeting each other, it's like, oh my God, like we're best friends, right? So it is interesting how just some sort of relatability, again, whether it's maybe someone else, maybe had a family member that was on a submarine or something like that. It builds immediate relatability and talking points, right? It can be an icebreaker immediately that you may not have had, which would have not allowed you to go up to that person in the first place to talk to them.
And we do use that as the chamber membership as well. That's something I say when I talk about your chamber membership. Hey, add this to your email signature, proud chamber member. When you're calling people, see if they're chamber members. And you can say, hey, you're members of the Naperville Chamber. So am I. So that already is helping make that small connection as well. But like I said, going a little bit behind the scenes, going a little bit deeper behind some of the people in our area, we are so blessed with a wealth of talent, wealth of expertise, and people who are willing to share their stories. You just have to ask. So let's do it.
Yeah.
Kelli, what else are we? Kelli's really led the charge here and worked with Craig and Maddie and Mike and the whole team here at 101. What else was the catalyst to get this actually going, and kind of the spark that went from my idea in 2019 and Craig talking about this to us being here now?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just trying to get what we do and who are a part of our membership out in front of the community, right? So we have around 1,100 members, up and down, and I think being able to tell those stories is always like my number one goal. I love when people reach out to me, they email me with a press release or just, hey, would you be able to talk about this? And if I can find a way to do it, I think that's what strategically, Kaylin and our board of directors want. It's members first. So this is another opportunity to be members first, but also highlight these important stories behind the leaders, what they do to the community to make this a number one place to live and reside and work and do business. So I think the modern approach of it, podcasts have been around now for a while, but I think they have continued to evolve. And I think that we can have a role in bringing our members' stories through this.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I can add is just obviously we were doing or are doing a podcast as well. So, just having the resources available to be able to do it, not everyone has, whether it's the camera setups, the audio setups, the personnel. Again, you already mentioned, but thank you to Mike and Maddie on our team that helped do this. Without them, obviously, we wouldn't be able to do it. So very similar, when we talked with Kelli, you didn't have that internal team to do that. So it is nice that, there's things that we're able to do, that things that you guys are able to do, which, again, bringing that all together for the greater good is really why we're doing it, right? It really is going to be beneficial.
That's a thread you'll see as we talk to people throughout this podcast is that partner or perish mindset, right? We are not competitors. We are all complementary in different ways. I mean, yes, there may be direct competitors in some way, and I understand that. But even when people ask me, I'm deciding between your chamber or this other local chamber, I'm like, oh my gosh, join us both. We offer different things. We might have similar concepts, but we're different. Join us both. Let us help you. We all just want to serve our community. And I think that partnership, we're grateful for it. And I look forward to seeing more of that. We saw some of it forced due to COVID, right? As the economy and things switched and businesses were open and closed. And that was a really tricky time. And businesses that maybe hadn't partnered together before started doing that. And it's been great to see that flourish and kind of that mindset of helping each other is that, a rising tide lifts all boats versus I need to put you down for me to rise. And I look forward to this new culture of, hey, let's all get better together. And maybe you get better this way and I get better this way and however it works. But join each other's success, I think is huge piece we'll see.
I feel like I learned that early in my career too. I don't know if it was just the industry I was in supply chain logistics. A lot of, again, quote unquote, competitors are working together. Whether it's that you have the warehouse or they have the trucks or they have the customers. there's a lot where those type of companies can help each other too, right? Because again, if they do, then they're all getting something out of it. If they don't, all they're doing is hurting themselves and hurting their competitors, and it doesn't help anyone. One of the other questions that I wanted to ask, just so, a lot of people are most likely going to be chamber members that are watching this, but, you did mention that also for potential chamber members. So what is kind of the reach of the, again, Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce? Because I feel like a lot of people think it's just Naperville, and even me included, I thought it was just Naperville.
Oh, yeah, no, we are not border bound at all. So Naperville area, we really have a regional focus. So 45% of our members don't have a Naperville address. We have members from 61 cities other than Naperville in the state of Illinois and 7 other states.
That's interesting.
People say, why is that? We're really grateful that the leaders before me and the leaders in the chamber built such a strong foundation, such a strong reputation that we've been able to build upon that. And so we are one of the larger chambers in the state. And with that, we're able to provide fantastic resources, which allows us to get more members, which allows us to provide more resources. We're one of the only chambers in the state that has a full-time staff member doing government affairs work. And so I think because we are so large, we have companies that might be headquartered. We have one company that's headquartered in Oregon, but they have a salesperson who comes through Naperville every so often. They found value in attending our women in business events, and they wanted to be a chamber member and have their business listed right alongside the other businesses. So that's awesome to see our reach and that our mission, again, moving business forward. I say I want to be a part of your success story. I don't care where you are. You don't need to be in Naperville proper or DuPage or Will County. If you're buying what we're selling, which is you want to get better, come to us. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Have you guys gone? Have you gone international yet, or just the States?
I know
so
some
far?
of our social posts go international.
Okay.
But that may be.
Because I was going to say,
not-
Challenge accepted.
Naperville has what, a sister city?
We do. We have
sister cities.
Nitra, Slovakia, Cancun, Mexico, and another city in Mexico.
Got to pick some of them up.
So
as, chamber
3, I
members.
believe.
I've been strongly advocating for some programming in any one of those cities.
Yeah.
I think it would be
know.
fun.
Said I want to do like an exchange trip to Cancun. I feel like we could make that work, but
Business after hours, Cancun.
That would be a fun one.
just being able to provide businesses with good support, for their staff members. Sometimes when we have chamber members join, I just had this happen last week. Was talking to a larger company in town. I said, "Oh, well, I'd love the manager of this to start coming to our stuff." They go, "Oh, I thought the chamber membership was only for me." No, it is for your whole company. People who volunteer for you, who work for you. We really want to help you grow in the ways that you need currently, and that's going to adjust throughout the timeline of your business. You might need leads, you might need mentorship or board members. It's going to fluctuate, but grateful that we have such an intensive and breadth of programs and events and membership benefits that you don't have to come to a single chamber event to more than get your value back. Right. Now, you can also eat and drink your way through your chamber membership pretty quickly. So there are benefits to attending in person too, but we are about that relationship and that connection, and that can happen in person, and that can happen via podcast, and that can happen different ways. And I think that's one thing we're looking to do.
Yeah. I think we really, the chamber is known for delivering on its promise and not overselling. And I think what's beautiful about our members, well, what I love most is when they don't look at me, for example, and just say, "Oh, you're the director of marketing and communications for the chamber, but you can't really do anything for me." And that couldn't be farther from the truth. I love spending hours on the phone or in person. Our member success orientation is like a great opportunity to have these one-on-one dialogues about how you can do your strategic marketing. I love doing strategy, and so bringing the knowledge of our chamber members or our staff to a chamber member or connecting them, like, I can't give you that, but I know somebody who does SEO. I know somebody who does this. But, walking through those challenges they face, I think, we're almost like little consultants, all of us inside the chamber, and connecting members from Oregon or from anywhere.
To be that partner.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It is a partner.
And now I can talk NACC for like days on end, which is great, right? It's passion. It's wonderful. But Craig, before we get too much into the series, want to hear a little bit about you. Again, you started this partnership for this podcast, the idea of going behind the scenes. What's your motivation behind that?
Yeah. So, both of you obviously know 101 Digital. We do manage IT and cybersecurity. And a big part of our marketing push was to start a podcast, video format as well, so that people could obviously watch it. And it's really to, again, we've talked about it during this already, is to be more relatable, right? So that people know who's, running the company, who's behind it, putting a face to it, right? Like when I go out now and I'm looking either for vendors or even in my own personal life, if I'm looking for, someone to do, say, HVAC or plumbing, whatever it might be, right? Having someone's actual face on that website and say, like, here's the business owner, or knowing that business owner now through, say, the chamber, makes it a much easier decision, right? So, since joining the chamber, I kind of joke that I've probably actually gotten more personal development or success out of the chamber, with some obviously professional development and business development as well, right? Like we have gotten some leads and different things like that, but that really never was our main focus. So very similar to, say, this podcast. It's the same kind of concept that we had originally with 101, which is, again, giving a platform for relatability, for authenticity, where people can just come here and talk, right? And say, this is what's going on. And again, for me personally, it goes back to what I said earlier. Been here for 30 years. There's a lot of things within the Naperville community or even other, local communities that I didn't know existed. And some of that now, having a young son, being able to bring him to these things for experiences, right? Or knowing that he's going to be growing up in the school district and being more involved in the school district, different things like that are just going to be extremely beneficial. So helping the community, if this podcast gets one person to go to something that changes their life, like this was worth it, right? So that's kind of my purpose behind it.
And I'm going to totally put you on the spot. Why did you join the chamber? How did you hear about the chamber, and why did you join to begin with? Because you've kind of joined and went all in, which is wonderful. But yeah.
So I don't know if I told you this story ever. I've told other people. Derek McDaniels actually knows the story because I actually met him through the chamber. It's probably about 7 years ago. So I was running another managed IT company that we ended up rolling into 101 Digital. It was called IT Naperville. And when I had that business, I was going to join the chamber. I can't remember how I exactly heard about it. I think it was one of those things, when you start a business, you're just looking, what are the good ways to like develop the business and get your name out there and different things like that. And in this case, it was, local chambers, right? So I actually went to a business after hours. It was, again, probably about 7 years ago. And I just had different intentions back then, right? I was younger and I thought it was going to be about, generating leads. That was like the main purpose of it. But I feel like it was good that I didn't end up joining then, and now joining about more than a year ago now. It was about being intentional about community and getting like our name out there to have people know who we are, right? And again, relatability, authenticity, that was kind of like the main focus of us joining the chamber. But I think we've gotten way more out of it than I ever imagined. Like truly, it's one of those things where, you both have heard it. Everyone I talk to has heard it. So I feel like I'm a big advocate for it, but also a unpaid advocate, right? So it's like, it's one of those, in YouTube videos where you have to say like before, and this is not an ad, right? Like I was not paid for this content. So, I've even talked to you about my wife potentially somehow joining in some aspect, because I think she would have awesome personal development from it as well, right? So it is something where I think a lot of people can get a lot of great things from it. And so just joining in general is beneficial. And if this, again, podcast gets more people involved in it, then I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, and it can be intimidating, right? It can be intimidating to walk into a room we don't know. It can be intimidating to join. It can be intimidating to raise your hand for the first time, and especially if you don't know as much. So I think that's kind of been fun as we've had our relationship with you going through the chamber is, oh, hey, did you know about this event? No, I'm going to go and I learned this. Like that's where I get so much of my motivation and joy from is helping connect people to their passions related to anything they want to do in our community. And I think that's something else that's a goal of this podcast is asking those questions and saying, hey, I didn't even know that loaves and fishes was here in town. I didn't even know that fact. And so to help educate people and then tell them how they can do it, right? I told someone once, they said, how do I get involved? I said, if you are willing to raise your hand, come talk to me. I will find you your passion. We have 111 not-for-profits in the chamber. I can find one that suits you, or a city board, or a commission, or if there is something in this town, if you are willing to serve, that can utilize your specific expertise, let's find it together. And I look forward to talking about those opportunities so people can do that, because that's how Naperville got to be a best place to live and work, is because
I think so.
we're doing the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's actually people doing things versus, just trying to maybe, write a check, right? It's like really putting in the time and effort into it that sometimes is actually more beneficial than putting money towards something.
Yeah, we're not a community of complainers. We're a community of doers, rather than just complain. Like, hey, okay, I see this, let's do it. And I'm grateful to be a part of that.
So I think to kind of just wrap this up, how can people kind of, if this is obviously the first episode, but how can people already now get involved with the chamber? I know, what's your guys' website? You guys have socials. Kelli, you want to kind of mention website address, social media, and other things that people can get to?
Absolutely. So www.naperville.net is where you can get the full picture of what the chamber is, who we are, the staff, the committees to get involved in. Teams, you mentioned, is a great sort of someone leads groups, as well as our full calendar of programs and events. Social, we're Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. So we're on all the
No TikTok yet?
No, well, it's in discussion.
This might be a good part right here. We're going to throw that exact segment on your guys' TikTok.
Yeah, and of course we have a robust email list that we love to have community and chamber members a part of, regularly communicating with e-publications and from our Young Professionals Network, Women in Business, general upcoming programs and events. We have a monthly publication called The Current. But I'm looking forward to promoting this podcast, not only on social, in email, but also on our website. We will have a devoted page for that.
And I'll be doing it by person as well. I actually already let some people know yesterday that we might be doing this and that they should be looking out for it. So
Oh, the pressure is on.
yeah, it is.
But,
Hopefully people tune in.
yes, no, www.naperville.net again, and make the ask. Somebody out there, if there's somebody you want to meet, if there's some place you want to volunteer or learn more about, make the ask, and you'd be surprised how people respond. So, well, speaking of making the ask, thank you for the invitation for this partnership. Thank you, Kelli, for coming here and helping do a lot of the behind the scenes strategy work to get this set up. And thanks for your time. I think this is going to be fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being our first guest.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, 101.